Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Stenstrom. I'm the owner and artistic director of Elle Salon and Color Group. We are known to be the most published salon nationwide. We have, as you see, the display of our magazine covers. Editors love our work because of the combination of artistic cut and color. As you see, we are in the middle of our photo shoot. Our beautiful models waiting to have their makeup done with these great makeup artists. We do this annually at Elle Salon, and it's a great inspiration for our clients, for our staff, so we really enjoy doing these photo shoots.
I am proud to present to you our high-gloss cut and color DVD collection produced in New York in collaboration with All Nutrient Organic Hair Color. You can expect 3 very different looks that emphasize glossy hair in combination with innovative hair cutting.
Hi, I'm Katie Najak. I work at Elle Salon and Color Group. I'm a color specialist and educator, and I'm really excited to show you guys 3 looks that we did from New York.
We're going in with All Nutrient 5 chocolate and 20 volume for her base. The chocolate is going to be really rich and a really nice brown next to her skin tone. It's really going to play on her blue eyes. You always want to make sure to choose a tone that's going to complement their skin. You don't want to use something cool if they're not a person that can have cool tones. So just going in and applying this base, section by section. Really saturate the hair. Taking horizontal sections just to move across the whole top. Still being very conscious not to sit the hair on her skin. You want to make sure you always apply enough to the root, and then grab a little bit more for the ends. See, I'm really working that product in there, making sure, almost triple checking to make sure that I have that full saturation. Working towards the sides, making sure, pushing it away from the face. See, now working towards the back. Pushing the hair up and away from the ear, taking clean sections. Again, using that brush to really feather the product. Making sure you get all those little hairs around the face. You don't want to have an all rich, all over color and then have a few lighter hairs around the face. Again, brushing the hair away. We'll now go in with the horizontal sections just like the first side. You can see I have enough product for saturation, but not too much that it's dripping. So we're just finishing up this side. You can can already see as it's processing how pretty that is against her skin. Finer sections towards the ear. The hair is naturally finer in those areas. Just really working in the product. You can really use the bristle to kind of grab any loose hairs that are not in. Just make sure that they get in with the rest of them. You can see just going towards the back where there are shorter layers and just taking again diagonal sectioning just to really work across the whole back of the head. You can lay each section on top of each other because in the back you don't have to worry about it laying on her face, but you want to brush it up away from her neck. You can see with this vertical, almost diagonal section, I'm just moving pretty quickly across the back of the head. Just saturating those last few sections. Using the bristles to catch any stray hairs. You always want to make sure you want to go back and make sure all your sections are fully saturated so they can evenly process. And there's our first step. Now we're going back in and doing a technique called balayage, which is a freehand technique where we don't use foil. And we're just gently painting on our lightener over the tint. And what the lightener is going to do is it's going to gently eat through a little bit of that tint to give us a little bit of a brighter piece towards the front. Balayage is great just for adding a few finishing touches or if you just want a few little pieces to crack through that surface. But you definitely don't want any harsh lines, so as you're working it through, you really want to feather it towards the top. As you can see, I'm not taking my brush and just putting a horizontal line there. You want to make sure there's enough product because it's not in foil. As you can see, just picking up those pieces as you see them. Using all that texture in the haircut to your advantage for placing those brighter pieces in. As you can see, her olive rich color just has the few peekaboos of that brighter tone. Now after, we're going in with our Keratin 6R Ruby Red to give a flash of that red. Now where you put it on the darker, you're just going to get a hint of that red. And then on that flash, you'll just get a really fun, bright piece. It's really going to accent the long piece in the front. Another really easy technique, just going through and picking up pieces and painting on that 6R Ruby Red. Just picking up a few of those pieces on the top just so that when she moves her head you just see like flickers of that red accent. So you have this beautiful all over chocolate and a sparkle of that ruby red. Again, going around to the other side, kind of picking up the pieces that stick out to you and making those your accents. This is a very easy way to add a little bit of spice to any of your all over colors. You never want your all over color to just look flat. So anything you can do to give them a little extra sparkle is really, really going to help out your all over look. As you can see, just finishing up, painting on the rest of my accent pieces. It's going to give this beautiful all over chocolate a little extra sparkle.
With my model, the first thing I do is I evaluate the neckline, the hairline, the shape of the head before I ever start my cutting. As you see at this time, I am checking my model's haircut and I see she already came in with a lot of undercutting. Actually, undercutting works really well for these new modern haircuts. So I took advantage of it and made it work for me. It gives me much softer, lighter look around the face so they're not so heavy and bulky. I'm starting from the back and trying to remove some weight around the crown area. So most of my length is taken off from middle of the head all the way to the top. The crown needs to be shorter to reduce the weight to give me more height and more fullness. Straight out from the scalp, hold straight out at 90 degrees and continue moving up. I am doing same thing. As you see, I'm ignoring behind the ears because I want to leave that as long and as full as possible. So my sectioning does not start low, but actually starts from the middle of the head and I'm working my way up. So just continue your section by section, and actually evaluate how your haircut is shaping. As I'm watching for my shape, I'm realizing that again, the weight of the hair is mostly at the crown area. So you don't need always start from the neckline. So before your haircut, determine where is the weight you want to reduce and where you want to leave it. In this case, I do want to leave my weight at the neckline. So again, I'm going section by section, straight out from the scalp, which would be at 90 degrees, and I'm continuing up. I use the method of cutting on top of my fingers when I want to cut the crown shorter. So whenever I use this method, as you see, I'm cutting on top of my fingers. That keeps the bottom, the neckline, stronger, heavier, and it reduces a lot of weight at the crown area. Just continue with follow the head shape, and as you're getting close to the ear area, be careful at this section, slightly over direct to the middle. So continue. As you see, I'm turning her, and you'll see as I'm getting behind the ear, just slight over direction. You don't always over direct behind the ears, as most of us think that that's what we need to do. Look at your neckline and you look at the hairline. If your hairline is really weak, over direct back. But if your hairline and your neckline is nice and strong, you do not need to over direct that much. So that's really a mistake that most people make. Over direct everything far too back and you create these really thick hair behind the ears. So as I'm moving forward and I'm actually cutting the undercutting straight out, be sure whenever you're undercutting to definitely take the top corner off. Do not leave a squareness. By leaving the squareness, it will push the hair out and you will not create the flat look that you're looking for. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm just, as you see, I'm using the tip of my shears. I want very soft sideburns. The worst thing happens is a lot of time we really blunt those sideburns, and what it does, it gives us the 80s look. Now the trends are very soft and very textured. With my model, what I want to do is I want to leave her bangs quite long, so I'm over directing them back so the crown will be shorter but the bangs would be a lot longer. Same thing, start in the middle of the head and hold straight up and point cut. At this point, again, I am evaluating. What I'm doing is I'm coming back, taking point cutting my guideline. I want that to be really soft
and textury. So as soon as I'm finished, the same thing. I'm going section by section. I am holding it straight down, and I'm using the tip of my scissors to really blunt any extra texture that I have created. At this point, I really want nice, clean, soft lines. As you see, I'm not really blunting them strongly, but my scissors are very light. It's almost like airy. Now I'm starting on the other side. As you see, I am over directing the hair slightly forward because I want to be my shortest around the face and to be sure that I'm keeping all the length in the back. So as you see, everything is slightly over directed forward. Do you see how I'm pushing it all forward? Because I want to take zero length off the length that I have in the back. I want my most fullness in the back and my shortest around the sides. So start from the front. If you have section 1, 2 goes to 1, 3 goes to 2, 4 goes to 3, and actually at number 5 goes all the way to number 1 because I want to keep all my length. Again, as I'm doing it now, I'm checking my sides, and as you see, I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm really going to be point cutting it very clean, and it's almost like zigzags, but it's very light. The lightness of this, it ensures that your lines are very soft and everything melts. You really want your lines to melt. There's no stop and go. So I almost finished every one of my haircuts with very light, small point cutting. If the hair is thick, I use large point cutting. So my point cuttings are quite deep. But when the hair is fine like this, I'm using very small point cutting. These are the texturizing shears that I'm using. This is undercutting. Whenever I undercut, before I ever bring the hair back on top, I always use my jaws, which are AT texturizing shears, or my fine texturizing shears. What I'm using right now, these are 32 teeth texturizing shears. One side is serrated and one side is straight. This ensures that my undercutting is very, very soft. The undercutting should really melt on your scalp. It should not be bulky. If it's bulky, then when you bring the top layer down, then it looks full and bulky. So be sure before you do anything else, go section by section from the bottom, use your texturizing shears, melt the line before you bring the long hair down. Now, this is my heavy side. The mistake everyone makes that they layer the heavy side as much as your light side. The heavy side should be left a lot longer and heavier than your light side. As you see, I'm not pushing the hair all the way up. It's all straight up from the scalp, and slightly I'm moving high up when I get to the crown. So watch the section as I'm cutting them straight out and very lightly. The next section again is over directed back slightly to ensure the length in front. This is where you want to be sure that as you are cutting, stay literally straight up. The hair should be directed toward you and straight up. Do not push the hair up. And as you see, I'm using large scissors, large comb, because I'm able to cut much faster and there's only 1 or 2 slices. As you see, by over directing the hair back, it left my front very long and heavy. I'm actually giving her side swoopy bangs. Whenever you're cutting swoopy bangs, always start on the part line, because the short hair pushes long. So stand on the part side, start from that side, and work your way to the heavy side. As you see, I'm using the tip of my shears because I don't want absolutely no blunt lines. What I'm using at this point, when I'm completely finished with my haircut, what I do, I pretend like I'm starting my haircut all over again. But at this point, as you see, these are called jaws. They're 8 teeth texturizing shears. I go step by step. I pretend like I'm cutting the whole hair all over again. This is the time. It's not to be sloppy, not to, go really quickly, because you do not want to disturb the precision that you have already achieved. So you're actually going through the same thing. What this does, it just softens up the tips, so it gives you those invisible layers. So you can see the stop and go. Everything melts together. This makes you blow drying so much easier because it makes everything melt together. And again, as you're doing this, drop the hair. Be sure not to pick up the same section over again. You just want to pick up one section. When you're done, comb it down, push it to the side, and start with the next section. I am blending my undercutting with a long section. I'm starting from my undercut. As you see the short hair from underneath, again, it's from undercutting. Go 1, 2, 3. Usually how many snips I take depends on how much weight I want to reduce. In this case, I want to reduce quite a bit of weight. So as you see, 2, 3 snips, and continue. As soon as I'm finished with one section, I drop it, and then I start with the next section. If you go over same section over and over again, you're going to chop up your haircut and you're going to lose your precision. When you finish with this, if you check your haircut should still be absolutely precise, precision, but with softer edges. As you see when I'm done, my precision is exactly the same. I could check my haircut, nothing should be different, except that you see the edges are soft and they all melt together. This is what gives you a new trend. This is what gives you, it updates your clients' hair. Many times clients want something different. Not that they necessarily don't want really the newest trend, but they want to update their look. This is what it will update the look. Now I'm cutting the crown. I'm starting from my light side to the heavy side. You always want to cut your light side shorter than your heavy side. So start from your light side, over direct the heavy side to the right, and continue same thing by jawing the section by section. Let go, and then start with the next. Do you see how I let that go? I'm starting with the next section. I do not want to go over same section again. So don't drop it till you absolutely completely achieve the look you're looking for. As you see, this side is shorter. It goes from short to long, but it all melts together.
So here you can see that we pre-sectioned her using a zigzag parting. I love working with the cut and the texture on this. This is a great opportunity to maximize color impact with layering. So I'm using the All Nutrient 6R Ruby Red in equal amounts of 5R Ruby Red and 20 volume for this whole bottom section. So I'm going to follow my parting and apply. Again, really making sure it's saturated. Trying to avoid as much stain as possible, just being very careful with the detail around the face. You can work your way back, applying to each section. You take vertical sections. When you apply, just brush strokes towards the back so it's not laying against her face. Whenever you have a color and you're doing two different tones, it's great because you can use a darker tone on the bottom and a lighter tone on top. And what you're going to get is a lot of movement with no foil. You can use foil to section and to separate the two different tones, but really this is a great way to do a two-dimensional look with minimum effort. So again, just really going with that zigzag, brushing the hair away from the top section so you don't mix the two. With your zigzag parting, you want to make sure that you don't cut the zigzag too deep because you don't want to interfere with the two tones. You want to definitely have them be separate for this look. So you want to make the bottom layer the majority and the top layer is just in the crown. As you can see, I'm working towards the back. Again, going with the partings. The back section is shorter, so it will take you less time. Just kind of work that product through. That's where the brush is great because you can just paint on that hair. Wherever you want the color to be, you just paint it on using the bristles. A firmer bristle is probably better. It's going to grab the hair a little bit more. I'm doing the same to the other side. Taking your sections, however most efficient. You just really want to work the product in there. I find diagonal or vertical sections work faster when working around the head. You can cover more space. Working towards the face again, brushing away from the face. It's going to allow you to just kind of layer that hair on top of each other so it can process separately from the top. You can see I kept it very clean away from the top section. And now I dragged over a little piece that would have been a part of the top because I really want to play on that tone on tone in the different levels. So I left a little piece that's going to fall in her bang dark so that when the light is on top of it, we really see that difference. Now we're going to work on our top section. Just really work that product in. This is, we are using a Keratin Demi-Permanent 6RS Scarlet Red in 20 volume. So the difference is going to be a brighter, more vibrant red. So you're going to see a lot of vibrance and reflection in the top and then like a nice, really rich, deep red on the bottom. As you can see, just layering each section on top of the next, keeping it separate. This is going to create a really beautiful dimensional look with zero foil. As you can already see that difference in tone, it's going to be gorgeous.
a layered A-line bob. So whenever I'm doing my layered A-line bob, I start from the bottom. I section it off from the tip of the ear to the tip of the ear. I start at the bottom from the middle of the head. I get straight out. I want to be sure that I don't cut the bottom thin because I want it to appear like more graduated layered bob. So my concentration is mostly about the tip of the ear rather than at the bottom. So I'm starting from the top and working my way to the bottom. As you see, I'm pushing the hair out so the neckline is left long and full. As I'm getting slowly, everything is straight out, but as you see, as I get closer to the ear, I'm going to start over directing the hair just back a little bit. This model has absolutely beautiful neckline, beautiful hairline, and she's not really weak behind the ear. If her hair was really weak behind the ear, this is the place I start over directing the hair back a lot. But in her case, I'm just over directing it back a little bit. As you see, there's not a big space behind her ear. It's just it goes out close to the ear. It's beautiful. So your over direction does not have to be as much. But again, you have to modify it on your client. And each client is absolutely different. So before you start your haircut, evaluate it. The thinner behind the ears, the weaker the neckline, the more over direction. Now I'm moving to my top section. This is really, really important. Be sure to push the hair straight up. Do not look at your section on top, because by cutting it straight out, it automatically leaves the crown area long. So do not cut that crown short. The hair is absolutely 100% 90 degrees from the scalp, and what you're looking at is not on the crown, but at the bottom, the last section at the bottom where it's cutting inside of your hand. This definitely the best trick to eliminate shortness in the crown, which when you dry it end up shrinking up, and what happens is you lose that beautiful graduation feeling, because these new modern graduated layer bobs, they're so invisible. You want them all melt together, so you don't know where it starts, you don't know where it ends. So that you create that by really leaving the crown area long. As you see, I'm getting closer to the ear, so I'm over directing it back just slightly, just like maybe one section from, let's say, section 2 to 1, no more than that, again because this model has a beautiful neckline. Now I'm starting from the side. This is my light side, so I'm doing slight diagonal section. The heavier you want to leave your section, the more diagonal. The more you want to layer, the more vertical section you're going to create. So as you see, my sections are very lightly diagonal. I want to keep some weight, but I don't want to be super heavy. Now I'm starting on the other side. I'm doing exactly what I did on my left side. I'm starting from the bottom, but I want to be sure I don't cut the neckline really short. As you see, I'm almost dropping the neckline. I'm not going straight down to that. Section by section, I'm getting close to behind the ears. They're over directed slightly, absolutely slightly. Otherwise you're going to create really heavy behind the ears, so she ends up looking like she's got double ears behind the ear, and that's what we don't want. But you will do that if your model had really weak neckline. I'm continuing up, and as we mentioned on the last side, the hair is straight up. You have to be sure that you don't cut the crown too short. By holding your fingers at 90 or straight up from the scalp, push the section absolutely toward you, and you always want to stand right in front of your section. So start walking. It's almost like a dance steps. Keep walking with each section. I'm getting from behind the ears. It's going to be an A-line bob, so I am really over directing it back quite a bit. That will ensure the weight and length around the front. So we're going to go from a lot of layers, a lot of graduation, to quite a bit of weight line around the front. Now I'm on my heavy side. The heavy side is really, really tricky. I find most people always cut the heavy side too short. They cut the crown too short, so when client comes back 6 weeks later,
it's overlaid. They actually look lopsided. So what you want to do is keep your layers at the bottom. Don't cut that crown too short. And I'm also creating, as I'm cutting, I'm point cutting the hair because I want my edges to be very soft, light, airy. And this is the way to create new trends. This is what happens when clients want something modern, updated without being really edgy. This gives me a beautiful, soft lines. As you see, when I'm point cutting, I'm not really shattering it. I'm only reducing some of the weight, so when the hair falls, it's soft and airy. So my point cuts are always very clean. Now, after I'm done with cutting the front, I always leave my neckline till the very end. I'm not really concerned about it at the beginning at all because I love to see my haircut and I love to get creative with my necklines. What I'm doing right now, this is probably the best kept secret. In order to create a really beautiful A-line, push the hair forward. Push it as far forward as you can. It's almost like twisting it, and then start from your shortest point to the longest point. Okay, now as you see, I am twisting the hair again. I'm pushing it from behind the ears forward. The purpose of this, it almost undercuts your A-line. So most our old-fashioned A-line, we used to cut it straight down and cut it straight, and it gave me that very bubbly, boxy look. By pushing it forward, it gives me that very nice, airy, light, soft A-line bob. I'm doing exactly the same thing on this side. Do you see how it's pushed forward? Over direct the hair from front all the way back. Start on this side. Now I'm starting from the front. I'm starting from the longest point to the shortest point. When this hair goes back to the original position, you'll see the hair is very light, very soft, and it gives you a beautiful A-line. I'm starting my haircut. I'm pretending like I'm starting my haircut all over again, because what I'm doing is I'm texturizing those ends. I'm using jaws. Jaws are AT texturizing shears. Every manufacturer, they name them different things. So that's all you need to know is they're AT texturizing shears. Whenever you're texturizing, you have to be sure that you pretend like you're starting your haircut all over again. You go step, section by section, and you texturize hair by hair. You cannot skip a section, because what happens is then you get a weight line and the hair is light, then they overpower each other. So each sections have to be very clean, the sections have to be very organized, and depends how many snips you take, depends on the weight of the hair. If the hair is really thick, you could really go 4 or 5 snips, go deeper with the hair. If the hair is really not that thick, you just do the tips. The purpose of this is it makes all your layers melt together. Again, gives you more of a modern, updated bobs. So since the side is I want to reduce the weight quite a bit more, as you see, I'm going deeper. I'm going much deeper than I did with the back. But when I'm done, I want to be sure that my precision is absolutely not disturbed. You do not want to disturb your precision. So when you check your haircut should still be absolutely perfect. A lot of clients complain. They go, I don't want to use texturizing shears on my hair, because they think the hair gets frizzy when they come back. But if you use this method of texturizing shears, your hair will never be frizzy, because they over texturize. So be very clean, be very methodical, and be very organized. So what I'm doing now is with my neckline. I want my neckline to be really soft. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm using my texturizing shears, scissor over comb. I want that neckline to be soft, textured, and really undestructive. I don't want it to be really clean and very masculine. I want everything to be very soft. At this point, you could create any kind of neckline you want, and I like to work with necklines. I like to see what their neckline wants to do, and I really go with that, and I think that's the best. Now, the very last, what I do, again, this is another thing that I absolutely love to do with all my haircut. I do that with long hair, I could do that with short hair, I do that with all my bobs. By pushing the hair all the way up, as you see, I'm pushing the hair all the way up, as high up as I can, but don't over Don't over direct it to the other side. Again, it's straight up, and then I point cut from I find my shortest point to the longest point. What this does, it makes all your layers really melt together. I probably do that probably a 90% of or 100% of every single client, because I hate weight lines. With these new looks, you don't want to have any weight line anywhere. I don't want to look like this is a graduation. I want to look like I don't know where it starts, I don't want to know where it ends. By doing this, it makes the hair really makes all your layers from the back and your graduation and the length in front, it makes everything melt together. So when I'm almost done with my haircut, I go back to my precision, I go back to my perimeter, and I use the tip of my scissors and I just soften up all those edges. Everything with my haircut, I want soft and light. And whenever I do my point cutting, I'm very methodical with my point cutting also. I don't try to really shatter the hair. That's not the purpose of it. A lot of point cuttings that we normally used in past is just to shatter the hair. With these new looks, I don't want to shatter the hair. I want to just create soft lines. So take your time, be organized, hold your fingers to the shape of the hair that you're trying to achieve, and point cut. As you see from here, I'm starting from the front, my longest point to my shortest point. Hold it straight down, and then just light point cutting. If your hair is very thick, use the tip of your finger, the tip of your scissors, go deeper. But if the hair is fine, use the tip of your scissors and just go just barely, maybe 1/4 of an inch deep into the hair. And as you see, I'm moving from the front to the back. It's like checking my haircut. I want to be sure the front completely melts with the back, so there's no stop and go. There's the end results of my haircut. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I work with her hairline and long hair, and I think it looks beautiful, and you see the end results when it's dry. I always start almost 100% of every one of my clients when I finish with my haircuts, blow dry it and check it dry. To me, this is probably the most important part of my haircut. I start, again, I'm pretending like I'm starting my haircut all over again. I start step by step, check every single section. I want my precision to be perfect. And not only I'm checking for my precision, because there's areas that it's got too much weight, or I need to create more bulk. I might blunt it, or I might texturize it, or I might point cut it. So there's a lot of things involved that I'm looking for. And not only that, the most important part of my dry cutting is suitability. Many times when I'm finished, I look at my client's face and I say, God, she's got amazing cheekbones. I want to open those even more. So in this case, that's exactly what I'm doing to her. So as you see, I slide cut around the face. I don't want to disturb my line, my A-line, but at the same time, I want to be light around the face. I want to open up the cheekbones. And at this point, what I'm doing is I want to make that bob, the traditional bob that we have been doing for many years, updated, make it more modern, make it newer. So I'm going around and I'm really carving through my ends, still keeping the shape, but as you see, she's got a lot more, there's a lot more lines, there's a lot more geometric lines, softness, point cutting. It's a combination of soft and hard, and that's what it makes it new and modern to me. So I really always combine. Now what I'm doing is I'm checking the entire haircut. I'm blending from my short to my long. As you see, I'm over directing the heavy side to the light side. This is really important because this way it becomes like a wave. You could push your hair from one side to the next. You will never have those long pieces hanging. Go to your haircut. I am going to my haircut. I'm point cutting every section. If it needs it, I point cut it. If it doesn't need it, it's perfect. I ignore it. You don't have to at this point cut every single section. So you look at it, you evaluate it. If you feel like it's a little too long, if it's a little too heavy, that's the time. This is the time to adjust all your haircut. So I'm just continuing same thing from the back, working my way to the front. The thicker the hair feels, the deeper my point cutting. If the hair doesn't feel too thick, my point cutting is very shallow, very light, very just soft. The points of my scissors, that's all I use. As you see, the technique that I'm using for point cutting is exactly the way I cut it. When I use my jaws, when I use my texturizing,
I go through my haircut step by step exactly the way I cut it, so I don't want to disturb my shape. That's all I'm doing, is modifying it slightly to make those layers be invisible. Your layers, everything should melt together, so when you're looking at the haircut, it almost looks one length. If I didn't texturize it when the hair is dry, that's when it gives you that very boxy, blunt, heavy look. So put your fingers to it, move it around. Do you see how I'm moving it around? I'm looking at it, I'm evaluating it. What does it need, and is it perfect? Is it the way I want it to look? As you see, I'm going through my haircut step by step. Even with all that texturizing that I did, as I'm going through my haircut is absolutely perfect. My precision is perfect. So be sure not to disturb your haircut as you are using your texturizing shears. That's when the mistake most everybody makes. They're a little too sloppy with their texturizing shears, and that's when clients come back, they go, I don't like my haircut, don't use those shears on me. It's because it's been over textured. Even when I'm point cutting, my point cuttings are very precise. I take my time and I really evaluate what section and how much I need to do. With the same haircut, I might be texturizing deeper on one side but lighter on the other side. So it's not the same. When the hair is dry, it completely behaves differently. So really actually talk to your section, talk to yourself. What does it need? What do you have to do? And go by that. I'm coming back again, I'm carving it. And this also gives me that asymmetric look. Otherwise it becomes overwhelming whenever you're doing airlines. If it's completely symmetric, it becomes a little boring. So by carving it around the face, this method of cutting, carving it around the face, it works amazing for people with round face. They could have this beautiful bob, but carving it around the face, it gives you very geometric vertical lines. That opens up their face and opens up the cheekbones and eyes, and as you see how gorgeous she looks. I think when you're done, literally twist your client around and one more flip just to see how it looks. Evaluate your haircut. It's not about just texturizing, it's not about cutting and recutting, but every single section I'm talking to myself, I'm evaluating what does it need, how do I like it. I turn her in the mirror and I look at her. And suitability, to me, this is where suitability comes. If the client's face feels it's long, I round off my corners. If she's got a round face, I add more geometric lines. At this point, be sure not to overcut. If you feel like she looks gorgeous, know when to stop.
Starting my highlight in the front in the bang area, I'm using a thicker weave to give her a more ribbon effect and brightness around the face. I'm using the All Nutrient Level 7 Iced Mocha with 30 volume. The 30 volume is going to give me a little bit more lift so I have brighter pieces throughout. You just want to paint it on. I'm feathering towards the top. I like to feather towards the top so that I don't have bleeding. Fold the foil as even as you possibly can. Now after you have that first foil in, I just take all of my sections diagonal. I'm constantly combing to see where the hair is falling because you want this to all make sense. I'm taking an additional piece that's going to connect the first foil I did so that you're getting from the very top to the very bottom a very even highlight. And this is a bolder piece. And this is going to fall right by her eye, so it's really going to accentuate the bright blue that she has. You want to make sure your foils are nice and clean, because if you're going to be going back and working in between them, you don't want to be fighting with all of your foils. Now I'm sectioning away from the very first section that's next to her face, because I definitely want the dark to be what's next to her face. As you can see, that's more of a slice, so that's going to shoot right across that dark. Again, definitely feathering towards the top. You don't want any harsh lines when it comes to your color. So as you can see, I'm working around the head. I'm working with the roundness of the head. I'm working with the cut. As I work towards the back, I put more space in between my weaves. You do not want to see throughout the layering, you don't want to see shelves of color. You want everything to have a very ribbony effect. You also want to put a fair amount of space in between the foils and your sections. So I'm going to go around and do the same to the other side, but no two sides are the same, so you don't just want to do everything symmetrical. No cut is symmetrical, so you don't want your color to be either. You definitely want a statement piece. Like on that side, I'm just doing one piece. That piece is probably going to be the focus on that side. Again, I'm making it very neat, a nice tight foil. As I'm working towards the back, you can see another big space in between the weave. That's going to create a very light highlighted feel. You do not want to feel too concentrated, then you're going to start losing your pieces. So this back piece, you can see I'm just grabbing one piece. And that's just going to provide a little veil for the back. Since the back is more layered, you do not want to put too many highlights back there. You just want to connect what's happening to the front to the back. This is just finishing up towards the back. Just putting a few dimensional pieces. They're going to be finer so that they're just kind of cracking through the color. You don't want them to be your statement piece. Just a couple more bright pieces in the crown. You want her to be able to move her hair around and just kind of have little pieces expose themselves as with the movement of the haircut. You can see I didn't put any pieces towards the bottom, it's not necessary. Now I'm going to be going in between my foils with Karatint Demi, level 5 medium ice mocha. This is going to just really richen up her base and really give me a nice contrast with that bright highlight. Staying in the same series, same tonal family, it's going to give me some really beautiful tone on tone. Just really working through making sure that it's saturated. You don't want any spots that are left out. You can see that I started at the top working towards the bottom, so I can easily move my foils up and work towards the face so that I'm brushing the hair towards the back. You can see that whole front section is all going to be nice and rich, which is really going to play up on her eyes and give a nice contrast with her skin tone. Again, nice clean sections. You really want to work the product in. Now you can see I've worked all the hair backwards so it's not in her face. We're going to go ahead and do the same to the other side. Each section that you take, you want to try not to disturb the foils. You don't want any slipping. Apply plenty of product. You don't want to have to go back and apply again. When you apply to the roots, if you go a little bit inside that foil, that's okay. You want as much of a melt as possible between the two tones. Again, really saturating the hair, making sure it's got enough product on it. Apply to both sides to really make sure you got enough. You can always use your comb to make sure that your product's getting on the whole piece, but you don't want to take a section that's too thick because then you're going to be trying to put it on forever. Just nice, clean, thin sections. Now we have our last piece, the bang area. You can see that's going to look beautiful next to her face. Apply cleanly around the part line. You want to stain the least amount of skin as possible. So we're going to let this process for about 30 minutes. And I think it's going to be beautiful.
Hi, with my model's hair, what I'm doing is I'm starting with my design line. I like to start from the front many times because if that's the most important part of my haircut, I want to be sure I don't cut that too short. That's where I start. If I start from the back, by the time I get to the front, it could be too short. So that was my designated section as far as the length. So I will start from there, work my way to the back. I actually do that many times, even on long hair. If I feel like I don't want to be sure to keep my front long, I do start my haircuts in the front. Then I'm working my way to the back. I'm leaving the front as long as possible, but I want to cut that neckline shorter. So start from the back, work your way to the middle of the head, and continue to the other side. You will see this method, it makes your job so easy. There is absolutely no guessworking. Did I cut it too short? Did I leave it too long? I don't have to go back because I know the length that I wanted to leave, and then I continue from there. The front, what I'm doing is I want to leave my corner long. I really need that length on her, but I want to create a lot of vertical lines. She's a little full around the cheekbones, so I want, whenever the client has round cheekbones or really square jawline, I want to give more of a vertical line. So this angle goes all the way up. I want to take away the tension from the jawline, and I want to bring the tension up to the cheekbones and the eyes. At this point, I'm working around the head. I did the back, the sides, and now I'm doing the bangs. Whenever I'm doing the bangs, I always start where the part line is. From the part line, work your way to the heavy side. Now, I'm starting from the back of the head. I'm doing a lot of layers. As you see, I'm not starting from the neckline. I'm actually dropping that. I want that area to be as full as possible. So you could start from the neckline if you decided you want that area to be fitted. The fitter the area, the more you start at the neckline. The fuller you want to keep it, just skip it. Don't feel like you have to go that low. As you see, I'm completely skipping the neckline and really cutting the crown much more so than the neckline. I want this haircut to be very flowy, full all the way around. As I'm getting closer to the ears, you will see I'm going to start pushing the hair back, over directing it. The purpose for that is I want to keep it longer and heavier over the ears. The thinner the hair, the finer the hair, the further that I over direct it. As you see, her hair is not very thick and she's got a little bit of wave in her hair, so I want to leave it long and heavy. So I'm really over directing her hair quite a bit, as far back as I could go. I'm getting to the front, same thing. You see I'm going over directed quite a bit. As you see, her hair is not very thick over the ears. And I want to leave my length. I want to leave as much weight as possible. From the front, same thing. It's over directed as far back as possible. And I'm taking very little bit off the top at this point because I want to leave the front longer and heavier. Okay, I'm starting in the back of the head. I want to use my razor. It's interesting how fine her hair is around the front. As you see, it's even frizzing a little bit, but it's so dense and thick in the crown area and below the crown. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking my razor, I'm literally removing every other hair. I absolutely love this method for anyone that I don't want to remove any more length. I love my length. I want to leave it long, but I want to reduce the weight and I want to go deep because it's really heavy deep down. But as you see, I'm going back to my scissors now because the front is not that thick. The front is finer, thinner, frizzier, so I don't need to use razor. I use my razor only when my sections are super thick and I don't want to take too much length off. Everything, I'm on the right side. As you will see, this is the light side. Whenever I'm cutting the light side, it's over directed up much more than I over direct the hair on the heavy side. See how far up I'm cutting it? The hair is pushed all the way up because I always want to overlayer the light side and underlayer the heavy side. So this is the light side. It goes all the way up parallel to your part. I'm really taking the top corner off quite a bit because I want that to be layered. Usually the light side gets long really quickly, so you want to layer that a lot more. Now we are on the heavy side. I'm going to be taking more of vertical sections because I do want to layer it, but I still want to leave it long. As you see on this side, I don't push it back. My fingers are down much further than on the light side. So this is my heavy side. Watch, this section is important. As you saw, my fingers push down. I want to leave it long and heavy. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing the crown area. The crown area is always what you want to do is blend your light side with your heavy side. So as you see, I'm sectioning. I'm over directing my heavy side to my light side. I almost want to leave the heavy side longer than my other section. So point cut it very lightly because I don't want my layers to be showing. I want them to be very invisible. So my point cutting are very gentle, very soft, and I'm not going that deep. Her hair is not that thick on top, so I'm not going that deep. Her hair was really thick. I would go much deeper than that. I want to keep her bangs long, so I'm over directing the bangs as far back as possible because I don't want to cut her bangs any shorter. This part of haircut is really, really important because it makes the hair flow from right to left. If they go home, they want to, move their part around, they're able to do that. And everything is very precision, everything melts, everything flows really nicely.
I'm almost done with the haircut, so I go back to my perimeter. I always like my edges, my perimeter, to be very soft. I hardly ever do really blunt lines unless the hair is very fine and thin. I want that to be really soft. I'm putting my comb really tight on the scalp, but then I'm using the tip of my shears and very lightly softening those edges so I don't have any hard edges. Because whenever you're layering the hair quite a bit interior, you don't want to have really hard edges in the underneath because it kind of looks off. So everything is really going back, checking my precision, checking my perimeter, and making any adjustments that I need to do. This is the time that I make my adjustment. If I need to make the necklines a little shorter. So don't be afraid to go over your haircut and make any adjustments at this time. I'm blending from the back to the side. I'm holding it without not that much of a tension. Again, just double checking. As you see, I left a really big corner in front. I needed that. I wanted that for her face. Double checking the bangs. After I'm done with my haircut, I literally sometimes go over my haircut once, twice, 3 times. I want to be sure every line melts, every line looks good, every line is the way I want it to be. If I need to make adjustments, whether point cutting it or blunting it, if I need to use a razor at this point, whatever I need to do, this is the time I do it. And also after I finished my hair cutting, now I know my precision is great, my haircut is great, the suitability is very important. So this is when I make all kind of adjustment as far as what I wanted to do depends on her face shape. So any adjustments that I'm going to make right now is all for suitability. In this point, I want to add a lot of vertical lines on her. I want my lines to be as vertical as possible, and I want to create a lot of points. Anything that's very geometric, even though I create a lot of softness inside, but I want a lot of geometric point, sharp lines on her. I think that would be very becoming. She's got a lot of fullness in the crown. I still have the length in the front. And as you see now, the hair is dry. And what I'm doing is, again, I'm checking the haircut. By doing this, I'm softening up the bangs so the bangs won't be so thick and heavy. I need lighter bangs. I want them to be long, but I want them to be nice and soft. By creating that blunt line, solid line, look what happens to her eyes and cheekbones. I really want to emphasize the eyes and cheekbones. I want all the attention to go up. So I'm really being creative and creating some beautiful, slight asymmetric bangs. And from there, then I start again my creativity, suitability. I want to be closer to her face. I want to be flat around the face. So I'm really going to be creating a lot of nice points, a lot of geometric lines. As you see, I'm doing a lot of detail work. Whenever I'm doing detail work, I always use the tip of my scissors. So now I'm going in and cleaning as much as possible because I want to have that really, really sharp, asymmetric look. The cleanup is what it makes your haircut different than anybody else's, because most everybody cuts and takes 5 minutes, 2 minutes to check it, but for me, probably 50% of my haircut is done dry. I really evaluate the shape, I evaluate the suitability, I evaluate what do I like, what don't I like, what do I need to adjust. It's not about precision, I'm not just checking for precision, but I'm really checking for suitability. So I think that part of the haircut was going to put your signature on your haircut more so than anybody else's. It's the your finish work, and my finish work is, to me, is extremely important. As you see with all the razor cut that I had done and all the texturizing shears, when I checked my haircut, the precision should absolutely still be perfect. So go over it. If you used a razor and you felt like you over raised it, or if the ends are a little wispy, be sure to clean them. And when you're cleaning any razor, if you have razor cut and you're cleaning them, be sure to not blunt them again with scissors. And again, you defeating the purpose of razor cutting. Use point cutting,
but you don't have to use your point cutting so deeply. Just soft point cutting, it cleans all those edges. Okay, what I'm trying to do again, I want to create really vertical lines. I'm trying to create, bring the emphasis on the cheekbones and the eyes. So I'm doing a lot of detail work around the cheekbones and eyes. On each face shape, I do different detail work. If I'm doing with long face, I make all my lines much rounder. She's got round cheekbones, so I want to add a lot of points, a lot of geometric lines. Those will absolutely look gorgeous on her. Not only that, it makes your haircut very creative, very artistic, and also, something that looks great on her. As you see, I'm going over my bangs again. I check my haircut over and over, and I want it to look good. And I'm not just checking for precision, but I'm really checking for suitability and creativity. The dry cut is mostly suitability, creativity. So for me, that is the most important part. And also when you're doing bangs, be sure to go a little further back. Somehow everybody's afraid of going deeper with the bangs. When you don't go too deep, then it literally cuts the face, makes the face very, very small. So whenever you're doing bangs, be really thoughtful, really look at the face shape, and then decide how far you want to go. That doesn't mean you have to go deep with every single client, but like on my model, I really need to go a little deeper. As you see, I'm using the tip of my shears to soften up her neckline. I want those necklines to be really nice and soft.